Hey guys, hopefully you're having a pretty good weekend. I'm not sure what day you'll be watching this. Don't forget to fill out your form. It'll be just below this. And let's start by examining what it is that we're going to be talking about. You may be able to tell by this giant word next to me. We're going to be dealing with the concept of power. We're continuing to think about power. Where we've left off in your fishbone activities is now you've made some decisions about whether or not the goals that the Americans had when they fought the Revolution were fulfilled or not. Well, we're going to take a little bit of a look at one aspect of that and how it leads directly to what you read about in Chapter 5, Section 2, in terms of the the new American Constitution. So let's just look at the objective for this video. I want us to be looking and thinking about what impact the concept of power had on American leaders when they created their own government. And when I say that, I'm really talking about the Articles of Confederation, not yet the Constitution, because what I want to explore a little bit further is now what new problems did they create for themselves, which they'll have to solve with the Constitution. So let's start with this map right here. Oh, there we go. This map right here. And what this map right here shows us, okay, is a map of the British Empire. And actually down there it has a list of all the British Empire's possessions as of 1776. So, before the Declaration of Independence, you see all the possessions here in North America. Well, this arrow, right, is pointing to the source of the power. The source of the power is the government in London. Now, for a lot of the empire, right, would that be a distant authority or local control? And I think you know what the Americans thought about that. And so let's just review, so that we're all on the same page, some specific ways of thinking about those concepts. So when I say distant authority, what I'm talking about is for the people who are being governed, the power is from outside, right? It's removed from the people. It's far away. I mean, geographically, it's far away from them. The people have less influence and control over the power, because of that. And the other side of it, the people in power, or the government, because they're removed from those people, right? Think about this, right? The people are governing are here, and they're making laws for these people over here. They know less about their citizens. They know less about the problems that maybe their citizens have. Whereas local control, the power is just that. It's more local. In our studies for the rest of the year, this is going to be synonymous with the idea of state power. So the power being in the individual states. So the power of Georgia, the power of North Carolina, right? The power of Massachusetts. The individual state government, that's really local control. The power is closer to the people. The power knows the people's needs and issues because they're closer, they're in proximity, they're aware of what's happening. So what I want to look at is just one issue, right? One issue as we move into this new era of American history that we're going to talk about and we're going to call foundations. So we started with revolution, and now we're moving into foundations, the foundations of the American government. So this map here is just a map of the United States as of 1787, prior to the Constitution. And we see Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, and then Virginia, and Virginia's pretty big there, and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, all things that we would, it looks normal. But as a result of the American Revolution, we know that they won this land, right? This is now part of the United States. Well, what happens to that land? More importantly, who gets to decide what happens to that land? Who owns it? And here is just a map that then goes to show you some of the problems that the individual states might have with each other. So for example, look at this map and look at Georgia, right? Look at North Carolina, look at South Carolina, look at Virginia. Okay, this right here says that it is claimed by Connecticut, so you get Connecticut here, you got Connecticut there, but look at Pennsylvania. And so if these states are going to be 13 loosely tied together states, it's not too hard to see what's going to happen here, right? You have these large states that are getting only larger, and you have some of these smaller states that have, well, they don't have the benefit of this room to grow. And so the question that they're going to ask themselves is, well, we all fought together, we won this together, why is it yours? And the question I would ask you is, who solves that? If we're saying that the power is local, okay, the power is local, there's an important question here. Who solves this dilemma? And so let's say this orange or gold or whatever color this is. What's going to happen to that? Are these smaller states going to split it up? Is it going to become something new? Are there going to be new states in this country? Is this country going to stay together? And then another problem is, let's say that somehow they manage to get this land. Does Virginia just keep on going? Does North Carolina just keep on going? Do we eventually end up with a state that goes from ocean to ocean? And if so, think about how big that is, how many people that might be, and then how is little Rhode Island or little Delaware or even little Massachusetts by comparison supposed to compete economically with that large state? And why would they want to be involved in a government with them, when they are so much larger, when they're so much more powerful? So when we look at the government before the Constitution under the Articles of Confederation, which many of you included in your fishbone as being at least something to do with the goals being fulfilled or not fulfilled, here's this table that I would like for you to consider. Right? So when the mother country of England governed, right, these are issues. Here is how those issues are met in the Articles of Confederation. And then over here in yellow, I have, well, the problems, the new problems. So if we go back to the objective here, the impact of power is, well, the Americans are going to create a government that is, well, not very powerful and local control. But what I want to look at in this table that I'm going to show you again in a second here is what new problems did they then create for themselves? And then what we have to talk about on Monday is looking at what you read and how we start to see how they approach the solutions. And there's going to be new problems there too. And that's really what you're taking notes on from your reading. So on your left-hand side in your note sheet for today, you have the notes, the issues, and the compromises. On the right-hand side, you're going to have the end story that leads to the need for a constitutional convention. So, for example, right, the problem they had was taxes. They had an issue with taxes. So when they create their new government, it's not surprising, and we talked about this week, it's not surprising that they didn't give that new government a power to tax. Well, that's fine. Right? That's what local control. Well, there's a problem, though, because they're $40 million in debt. And how do you get out of that if you don't have the power to tax? Another issue they had was with a tyrant king. They thought the king was too powerful. So when they created their new government, it's not surprising that they created it without a president, right? There's no chief executive. And that's fine, but there's a problem there. There's no leadership. And you can pause this and take a look at this and jot down some of these ideas. I'm not going to go through every one of them. Some of them we've already talked about, like how hard it was to get things passed. But they have issues. They have issues. And so what I want us to get to on Monday is an understanding of how they're going to solve those issues. And so let me just quickly introduce this idea, and we are going to get really into this on class on Monday. We will probably start with looking at this on Monday. What the Americans were struggling with was the seemingly separate ideas of distant authority and local control. And it seemed to them that you either had one or the other. And what the Constitution is going to what they're going to try to do in the Constitution by creating this concept of federalism is they're going to try to have both. And they're going to try to have it so that both have to work together and also check each other's power. So this central government, this ring over here, and that would be, our president, our Congress, our Supreme Court, everything that we think of in Washington, D.C. That central government is going to be one source of power. But the local control is still going to remain intact too, and that's going to be another source of power. And so the question that we're going to have to start to look at on Monday is, can they create a system that has both distant authority and local control and make it so that it works? And so the way that we're going to attack this is, we know that the state governments already existed, right? They had that. That's one of the reasons they rebelled. What we're going to really look at on Monday, and what you have some notes on the left-hand side of your sheet already, is how do they create this central government so that it doesn't violate maybe these issues, and so that it isn't viewed as a too powerful distant authority. Is it possible to do that? And that's what we're going to get into, and hopefully you have some notes over there in the reading already that maybe lead you to that. So hopefully you did your reading, take your notes on this, fill out the form, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a good rest of the weekend.